to Season 5 of the Let's Talk Data podcast series, presented by SAP, where we explore game-changing technologies with leading experts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Let's Talk Data podcast series. I'm excited to have with us today some experts around cognitive customer service. That's the title of our podcast today. And today our host is going to be Prasanna. So Prasanna, let me turn it over to you and have you introduce everyone joining the podcast today and tell us what we're going to be discussing in more detail.
Thank you, Ginger. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all, wherever you're joining in. Hope you're all safe. I'm Prasanna Mahalingam. I'll do a quick round of intro of my colleagues here. I have Shivanand, Hiremath, Shiva, and Sudarshan, Ranganath, Survepalli. So they're going to join with me and we're going to run through the cognitive customer use case, a brilliant use case. I hope you'll all be interested in this podcast today. Let me quickly start by introducing Wipro, who we are. Wipro is the third largest Indian software company. We've got operations out of 66 countries with a headcount of more than 190,000 people, engaged with different digital transformation programs for customers across various industries and geographies. So without taking much time, I'm going to pass the mic to Shiva, my colleague, to talk about this solution and why is it so important in the current industry trends.
Sure, Prasanna. So if you look in the context of digital transformation, right, see what we want to discuss today is how we ushered our customers into a new era of customer service transformation aided by SAP data intelligence and our own unique machine learning based approach to detect customer call reasons. Okay, that's what we're going to focus today, Prasanna, in terms of giving a overview of how we have leveraged data and the machine learning and the data intelligence to provide that kind of a solution.
That's very interesting. So we all know customer service is a very core process in any industry, right? Right from retail, telecom, automobiles to utilities. All of these industries are service oriented. There's a lot of focus going on in this area, right? So Shiva, so can you tell us some more on how you identified this area within the CX space, and how did you prioritize for developing this as a solution?
Yeah, absolutely, Prasanna. I think you're right. Customer service is basically it's the heart of any business. And unfortunately, what has happened is, if you look at it, there's a lot of room for improvement, and we can call it as a blessing in disguise also, because we can innovate from the existing status quo, right? So if you take utilities, for example, they are still behind the curve when it comes to adoption of CX transformation as compared to other industries like retail. However, with increased deregulation, competition, and the regulatory mandates, now my real estate customers, or the clients basically, or the companies, so to say, are seeking innovation-led customer service model, which is a fantastic news for us. A recent Gartner study showed that over 50% of utility companies are reallocating their investments for CX innovations, right? Another study by Gartner also predicts an increased use of artificial intelligence and continuous intelligence in proactive customer service by 2023, right? So combined with these two insights that we got from the market and also discussing with our customer base in utilities, which do have a lot of them, and even with other service industries like retail and even manufacturing and automobile, we focused our attention on how to provide a contextualized customer experience based on the insights derived from customer data available in IT systems. That's, you can say, the bull's eye of a solution that we took it forward.
Cool. So just to continue, so what changes are you seeing in terms of expectations of customers in service intensive industries?
So if you look at it, traditionally, there has been a single way interaction between a customer and a service organization, right? Now, that's part of history. Now, customers are looking for this two-way interaction anytime, anywhere, on any device, right? That's kind of a demand from customers now. Now, customers expect that their service providers, right, are able to personalize the interactions and provide them the propositions accordingly, right? And if you look at it, right, over 81% of consumers want their companies to know them better and interact accordingly, right? Rather than having a generic, be it very more specific. However, we also see that over 60% of the companies grapple with providing personalized customer experiences in real time, right? So what they're asking is the customers are asking without compromising on their data privacy. They expect the service providers to leverage their data to derive some insights and enable an improved customer centricity, right? Furthermore, they expect service providers to be more proactive than the reactive mode, which has been historically the mode of operations. So the key trends I'm seeing, Prasanna, from a customer behavior or customer expectation perspective.
Right. So the focus would definitely be on a contextualized customer service, right? So how does your solution address that, Shiva?
Yeah. So if you look at the transaction heavy industries like utilities, like retail, insurance, banking, right? They have got terabytes of data sitting in their big data systems or their ERP systems or customer experience systems or even the data warehousing systems, right? Which can really provide deep insights and patterns on customer behavior and responses to various situations, be it either internal factors like change of a tariff or some kind of a simulated bill that is created, or external factors like recession, job losses, or competition offering, right? So what we see is the data wants to tell a story, but we are not able to take it and narrate it in the right perspective, right? So our solution, Cognitive Customer Service, addresses this need by piecing together the past interactions, the transactional data, both the processed data as well as the in-flight data, where from a transaction data perspective, their master data in terms of what is their type, what's their age, right, and what is the customer segment and all those things, right? And the other aspect is the demographic data, because the customer behavior changes from region to region, even within a nation. Forget about between the nations or between the continents. Even between the regions, there is a change in the behavior for the similar situation a customer is in, right? So we used all this data and we are applying a right machine learning algorithm to predict the needs of a customer at that specific point of time, right? So that's one big thing that we have we wanted to address as part of a solution. The second aspect is we also extended further in proposing the next best actions for the needs that have been predicted with my machine learning algorithm, right? So this solution is offered a set of services that can be integrated with multiple channels, like for example, call center, self-service portals, or even what we can do is we can run this solution as an engine, which can be run in a batch or something where you can provide that proactive customer support to spot or anticipate his needs or his or her needs in advance, right? So in that way, what we're going to provide is that kind of a proactive, contextualized, and a personalized experience.
I think that's definitely the need of the hour, because customers are very much interested to have a very personalized experience, not a robotic experience, and that's great. So the challenges there, I think the use case has been laid out. Now, in terms of the digital technologies that you used, can you kind of expand on that, Shiva? What are the various digital technologies that you used to develop this solution?
Yeah, so we looked at various technology components. Definitely, being from SAP background, we had what is it called, some kind of a preference for SAP technologies. But in business a technology platform, or elsewhere it was called SAP Cloud Platform, you can bring in technology from any other non-SAP and you can integrate it, right? So in that way, we started with an open mind in terms of the technology that should be adopted to build this solution. Ultimately, what we did was to have a better integration and leverage our business technology platform services. We went ahead and implemented SAP Data Intelligence. That is our main engine here, which it's also called as DI platform, right? We use the SAP's business rule services. We use the IRPA, right? We use the UI5, which is a Fiori application, as well as the OData services, basically to connect to our customer experience systems like S4 CRM or the standalone CRM application or the sales cloud and the service cloud, right? So these are the key technical components we used, right? Now, What happened was when we started this solution development, right? In the first iteration, we did not have IRPA in the entire suite of technology or the solution that we want to develop. However, when we kind of further ideated and defined our needs, what happened was there came a requirement where we said, okay, I think there is a need to automate the mundane activities of a customer service agent, right? As well as there is a need to improve the consistency in the services that we provide, because typically in the service operation, what happens is it is left to the training, expertise, and few times moved on the CSA to offer services to a customer, right? So what the business head of the customer service team highlighted was during our show and tell, they said, I think we should get on and implement some kind of a IRPA bot so that I can have this consistency and also I can reduce the cost to serve. So that's where we saw IRPA as a logical extension to my prediction algorithm, to my business rules. So when the actions are agreed with the customer, implement a bot so it can automate the entire process. So in that way, we provided that additional value add using another digital technology component into the solution suite.
That's a nice extension to that. So Shiva, I mean, just to top it off, so while you built the solution, right? So did you use any particular methodology or a framework for developing the solution?
Yeah, definitely. People talked about agile methods and etc. to be used. But if you look at it now, for these kind of innovative solutions which are based on a specific business problem for specific personas, right? So we follow design thinking approach, following all those 5 iterative steps to ensure we have a persona slash the user at the heart of the solution. So what we did was typical with any design thinking, approach. We conducted multiple sessions with various personas, right? Like CSAs of our existing clientele base. We had our domain teams. We had SAP experts within our teams, right? We also had some end consumers or end customers, right? And even Wipro, you mentioned, right, that there's 190K employees. So there are a lot of employees who come up with their issues in terms of systems or payroll, etc. So we do have a dedicated help desk. So we also included the CSS, internal CSS also into the design thinking process to ensure the perspective of all the personas are considered, right, in terms of identifying and brainstorming on the use case. And from a technical perspective also, what we did was we also included the UI experts and the data science experts also into this design thinking sessions, so that we look at the entire desirability, feasibility, and the viability aspect when we came up with the final, not exactly final, but the first iterative solution that we developed.
Great, super. I'm going to change the track slightly here. I'm going to make the questions towards the technical aspects of it. So Sudarshan, you're on now. So what are the challenges you faced while building the solution? Now we heard Shiva, bring the entire use case alive in terms of what is the problem and how the whole thing shaped up together. But let's put the nuts and bolts together with technology. So yeah, so what are the challenges you faced while building it?
Sure, Prasanna. Hello everyone. My name is Sudarshan. I am part of the technical implementation team for the solution. Thank you, Prasanna, for bringing this question up, right? Because we know that this is a very machine learning intensive solution that we have built, right? It is a customer facing machine learning based predictive solution. So when we started implementing this solution, right, one of the first challenge for us was data and the quality of data, right? Because at the heart of any machine learning solution is data, right? If you have the right data set with the right labeling, then your learning and training the models becomes that much more simpler. Therefore, to start with, what I would say is that we are dealing here with a lot of interaction data, which is the past customer interaction history that will form the basis for our predictions. And this data is really unstructured. This is actually text information that's either typed in by the call center executive or communicated over emails, etc. The data spread across a lot of channels of interaction that has accumulated over the years. And now, if you look at the quality of this data, right, more often than not, there are syntactical, grammatical errors or spelling mistakes, and which is common with any textual information that you have. So our first challenge is really extracting meaning out of this data, right? Parsing this text data itself. The second challenge was preparing this data in a format that is suitable for training our machine learning models.
Right.
We had to create the data cleaning pipelines to ensure that this data is good enough, right, for feeding into our models. And as we were building these deep learning models that are based on supervised learning, we also had to label this data with the appropriate reasons. What we are trying to do ultimately is to see why the customer is calling, right? Predict the reason for the customer's call based on this interaction history. Therefore, we need to map the historical data to certain reasons. So there was some amount of data preparation involved, where the domain experts and the programmers had to identify, summarize the gist of a particular record, right, a text statement to a reason. And then obviously building this model itself and identifying which is the right model for us, as we iterated through multiple models and experimented with their accuracy, etc. Right, that was another time-consuming thing that we had to go through for this solution. And finally, we also needed an environment where we could host this model for inference, right? Because what we are looking for is to make this intelligence available at the click of a button or at the during the call that the call center agent is having with the customer, right? Or when the customer gets into the self-service portal. So on demand, we want this model to churn out the reason why the customer is calling. Therefore, performance of the model was very important. Therefore, hosting this model in an environment that supports the performance task was another important aspect for us to worry about. So this was, and to top it all, right, you also saw how many systems we are connecting with to extract this data. There are n number of systems where the customer data is spread across. So connecting to all of those and assimilating that data it was another challenge to top it all, right? Yeah. So these were the issues, Prasanna, that we had.
Superb. So I think you touched upon the key points of the data cleansing, as well as the getting the data right for the ML, because that's very, very important. So in terms of, I just wanted to just touch upon one small point before I go to the next one. In terms of building the model, so how did you use this data? Like how many iterations, etc.
Yeah. So just to give you a hint of the data, right? So what we did was we sourced the data from multiple customers that we had, this call center interaction history, and the corresponding reasons why the customer have called. What was the fallout? So actually, it is not one record that you can tag to an outcome, but it is multiple interaction records that are tagged to an outcome. Therefore, we had millions of records. Of course, we had to anonymize the data. We didn't want to have any customer-specific data there. The first thing we did when we got the data is to ensure that the customer names and any personal identifiers and addresses were masked. We had to. We actually said if there was a particular PIN code or a particular location, particular house number that we had, we actually codified it into a region to give a very high-level abstraction, right? Just to give you an example. And then, of course, all the personal information was removed. All we had was not even the exact dates and time stamps on the data. All we had was a series number that indicated the sequence of the conversation. So ultimately, our objective was to string together a series of conversations and tag it to the outcome, which was the reason why the person had called. So there was a lot of data engineering that was involved. And that was part of the challenge, like I said. The volumes of the data and the engineering effort that was involved to actually transform that data and string that data together to the outcomes that we had was a thing that our technical team as well as the domain team worked together to really make sense of this data. And also we wanted this to be a very generic solution, right, that I could apply across multiple customers in that domain, right, in that industry area. So we did not restrict ourselves to one data set. but we had a very large data set that was a mix and match of multiple data sources.
Perfect. Perfect.
So yeah, I hope that addressed it.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, I was planning to ask you on privacy. You had explained it very well by anonymizing. So we've taken care of that concern as well, because that's something that's prevalent
Absolutely.
across customers.
That is very important when we deal with data. And that's also important to ensure that we remove the bias of the models, right? By anonymizing it and by removing very narrow data points.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, coming to the the next point, which is basically, how did SAP help you overcome these challenges? I'm sure, looking at the complexity of the use case, there have been multiple challenges. How did SAP help you, overcome these challenges here?
Yeah, definitely. That's a very good point. I do want to bring up through this podcast. I do want to share how SAP helped us with this kind of solution, right? So while we tried to build this model initially, we were trying to use the open source tooling using VMs on hyperscalers, and what we ended up was to do with a lot of plumbing work in terms of accessing the data itself, then doing the cleaning, and then also training the models, everything, the entire life cycle management, right? The end to end, including data to a deployable inference model. There was a lot of plumbing work, and it was taking a lot of our time, right? The team's time. Just the administrative overheads of collecting the data, connecting to the sources, extracting the data, then loading it back into our VMs was a very cumbersome process. That was the time when we were at the peak of our solution implementation. That's when we got to know about the DI content sprint from SAP. We immediately signed up, and what SAP did was they enabled our team on data intelligence. They also provided us an environment to build our solution on, to prototype it on, right, basically. So they in fact offered us a dedicated development angel, one of the development experts, who was there with us, guiding us throughout our pilot, helping us understand the nuances of the tool. What we did finally, if I just have to summarize what DI offered us and how our life changed for the better with DI, it offered a holistic environment to us where we could do our data engineering and machine learning from a single platform. It had connectors to virtually every database we had in our landscape, and also to our SAP system. They have a tool called Metadata Explorer that helped us actually identify the various attributes of our data. It helped us basically see the quality of our data in a single shot without us having to do a lot of scripting around the data qualities. We could quickly see how many null values are there, what is the maximum length of data, are there any junk characters in our data, right? So this kind of exploration of the data was made possible by the Metadata Explorer. That hugely accelerated and saved time for our data scientists and the data team who were working on the data cleaning part, right, and data preparation part. Data intelligence also had a provision to help us build the data cleaning pipelines. These pipelines come with predefined operators that we could just plug and play to help us transform this data and clean the data, right? So finally, we could convert the data into the format that was suitable for our machine learning model trainings. And then, of course, for the ML development itself, right, there was a Jupyter notebook provision that DI offered, where we could build our own models, right, and then connect to these data pipelines. Once the models are built, they could be deployed as they could be converted to pickle files, deployable pickle files. We could download them as DA artifacts so that we could port them from our development environment to quality or production environments, right? And finally, these models, once deployed, we could just plug in a Python consumer pipeline so that they are ready for inference, right? And also with each inference, we used to get a lot of metrics around the model itself in terms of the various model performance parameters like accuracy, right? So in summary, what I would say is that SAP has been tremendously helpful, as well as DA as a platform was a great choice we made in terms of building this machine learning model itself. This is, as you saw, a very, very highly data intensive solution. So what we achieved with DI and SAP in the end is that we could build an end-to-end solution, right from extracting the data, manipulating, transforming the data, training our model, as well as deploying it as an inferenceable model all on a single platform. So that's what I have to say about our joint development on this with SAP.
Fantastic. Sudarshan, I've got one question to top it off. The proof of pudding is in eating, right? So how do you deploy our solution for customers?
Sure, Prasanna, because that is the ultimate purpose of building this, is to ensure that we can deploy it in multiple customer places, right? So what Wipro has done is is offering this solution on the SAP store, right? Where customers can purchase it. We can either deploy it on the customer's tenant if they have either a DI on premise or DI in the cloud. We can deploy these DI artifacts directly onto their tenant. We also offer a SaaS model where Wipro as an OEM can host this solution and customers can consume this. Like we said, the heart of the solution is this inferenceable model that tells you based on interaction history what the call reason is, and that data can come from any source. If the customer has additional sources, maybe in addition to what we explained them, or if they think their data is absolutely different, if they want help with retraining, we of course can do that for them as well, along with the customer. So in short, the model is available on the store, and customers as well can reach out to us, to Wipro directly for any help with deployment. I hope that helps, Prasanna, in terms of deployments.
Yeah, perfect. To the T. Perfect. Now, thanks a lot, Sudarshan. I will turn focus back to Shiva to top it off. Shiva, as the solution owner, the person who ideated and designed the entire solution, what are the key benefits that you would prioritize?
Sure. I think as Sudarshan touched upon, right, data is very key, and having lots of data from different type of business or industries, and ensuring that the data is anonymized to train a model is a prime need for developing any machine learning models. So what I can say, the first benefit I would say is, what we bring to the table is we have gone through that hard work of approaching our customers, approaching various data sources, right? Doing all those hard work so that you don't have to worry about the accuracy of this model. So you get a pre-trained model which is trained per industry to deliver what the contextual experience that you are looking at, right? That's one point. Now coming to the benefits, the other benefits I would go by based on each persona. Like if I take from a customer perspective, which is an end customer perspective, right? Definitely there is an improved customer satisfaction due to proactive and personalized handling of their needs, queries, and resolutions. And they're also happy because they are getting an omni-channel experience. So irrespective of the channels they contact, because this engine runs behind all those channels, they're getting a omni-channel experience, consistent experience. This is really very positive feedback we have got. And if you look from a customer service manager perspective, he has got so many pressures in terms of managing the business as well as reducing the cost, right? So what we have seen is we can say that this around 20% reduction in average call handling time due to this automation is going to reduce the cost of serve, or rather I can say you can say approximately 20% reduction of cost to serve can be achieved here. Also, as my customers are happy and satisfied, there is going to be a 15% reduction in the customer churn and its associated costs, right? The other aspect is the CSA attrition, because if you look at the service industries, they are at one of the highest attrition of their customer service agents. So what we see is the benefit that the solution is going to bring is there's going to be approximately 15% reduction in the CSA attrition, which is directly attributed to the intuitive user experience that is going to be provided, as well as automation, functionalities we have provided in this solution. Last but not the least, from a customer service manager perspective, right? It helps the Uberization of customer service operations. Like we hear there's always a trough and a peak of customer service activities based on some event that has happened, like for example, tariff change event that has happened or price change event that happened. There'll be a lot of customer queries. Oh, my bill has increased after you raise. So what is the reason, etc. Then you go and explaining them, right? So what's going to happen is at that point of time, you require additional CSS to serve that surge in the calls, right? Now, what the solution is going to do is the first it's going to do is it's going to predict those kind of a surge in the potential customer service calls. And due to this entire automation that I provided, it's all machine-based service provisioning. What I can do is I can Uberize my customer operations. For example, if a homemaker is sitting at home and he or she has got 4 hours of time to take the calls from the customers, what you can do is you can just provide the URL to her, redirect the call, and then the exactly same engine runs and they can effectively Uberize the customer service. So they can manage a peak load of answering to the customers effectively with minimal investment, or basically redirecting the same investment and exposing to my Uberized CSS. And if I look from a CIO or a CDO perspective, or what we call Chief Digital Officer, right? Now, there is a mandate to deliver digital innovations to the business at regular intervals. So this solution exactly delivers that. Using some 2 or 3 technologies, how I can transform is what I'll be able to showcase or prove to my business counterparts, right? The second part is, as we all mentioned, right, this is developed as some kind of a reusable framework which can be extended to multiple industries. So especially it's relevant for large corporate houses who are into multiple types of business. For example, they're into product sales, they're into product services, they are also selling the utilities, they are providing insurance services, lots of things, right? So for such kind of a business, what I can do is I can use this solution, I can train the model for their specific type of business, and they can reuse my entire application. So what we see here is easily there is a reduction of around 25% on the total cost of ownership due to the element of reusability. So these are the key benefits I can definitely see for the solution, Prasanna.
Perfect, Shiva. I think very eloquently put. First of all, it's a fantastic solution that kind of takes the technology that's there. It's readily available, taking it to the customer's customer as well, right? So that's very, very important. And I would like to personally thank you, Shiva and Sudarshan, for taking time off today to run through the entire experience of the cognitive customer solution development. That's fantastic, and thanks a lot.
My pleasure, Prasanna. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and thanks to both of you for sharing this learning/rewarding experience.
This is really excellent. I want to thank you guys. Wipro, y'all is such an important partner to us, and Prasanna, Shiva, and Sudarshan. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. And if you want to learn more, in the show notes, we'll have a link to their blog, which discusses more, and also a link to their business case if you want to know more, and if you want to dig down deeper and get involved with the solution. So thank you all for joining, and join us on our next episode of our Let's Talk Data podcast series. Thank you.